Greetings, welcome. I'm Jed Schlackman. I work as a holistic counselor, a hypnotherapist, and energy healer. So I provide a holistic approach to health and wellness, supporting people as they seek to improve their health and well-being, addressing body, mind, and spirit. The current video is one where I want to address the topic of autoimmune illnesses. And I'll be sharing some content from the page on my website, which explores that topic and provides a list of resources and references for you to research and explore further on your own. First, I want to point out that the phrase autoimmune is usually defined as a type of condition where the body is perceived to be attacking itself. And I find that interpretation fairly misleading and somewhat counterproductive. So I would tend to define it in a different way. I would say it's a state of chronic hyperactivity or hyperactivation of immune function or immune response. So you can have hyper or hypoactivity with different functions or organs in the body. So hyper means it's excessively active. Hypo would mean it's not active enough. That would be similar to the idea of hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism, where in one case the gland appears to be underactive, hypo, and in other cases it appears to be overactive, hyper. So with the immune system, that principle can apply that there's a normal range of activity that we would consider pretty balanced, pretty normal per se. And then there's ranges of activity that are excessively active or seemingly excessively underactive. So I'm going to do a screen share now, going to the website phinsights.com. So this is the website where I have a lot of information about my services and also resources on different topics. So we're going to switch to that screen now. So you can see there my psychoenergetic healing insights page, natural healing for autoimmune illnesses. And we'll look on the page there to go through the overview I provide. Chronic inflammatory conditions such as lupus, MS, Hashimoto's thyroid disease, chronic fatigue syndrome, rheumatoid arthritis, and fibromyalgia involve the body's immune system being in a state of chronic stimulation that coincides with damage to tissues or organs of the body. The conventional medicine paradigm sees this as the body mistakenly attacking itself and consequently uses immune suppressing drugs to reduce the pain and inflammation. That approach merely gives short-term symptom relief and has not resulted in truly healing these illnesses. In fact, the side effects of the immune suppressing drugs are themselves often quite debilitating and potentially fatal. So if we think about the intelligence of the body, when the immune system is activated, the body's intelligence believes there's a threat that it needs to respond to, or some type of wound or injury that it needs to repair. So if that's going on chronically, then that implies that there's some chronic form of stress or injury occurring, and the body has to continue overextending its immune defenses, so to speak, to try to keep up with that. In a sense, the body is faced with a stressful situation where it's choosing between what you could call the lesser of two evils. It's responding to a threat, and part of the collateral effect of that response can involve harm or damage to the body's own cells or tissues. But the body feels that's a necessary risk to take, so to speak, or an acceptable form of collateral damage for what it needs to accomplish with responding to the threat. You could make an analogy of looking at the world we live in, where a country might perceive there is an external threat or terrorists trying to attack the country, and there's a very aggressive response to that threat, and that aggressive response inevitably is going to cause harm to innocent people, but it's considered worth doing that because the threat is perceived to be so imminent or severe that if that response wasn't carried out, then the idea is that the ultimate harm or damage that would occur would be even worse than this collateral damage that's coming from that defensive response. So we can see a parallel with how the immune system could function when it senses or perceives a significant threat. Coming back to the overview on the web page, if we look at natural and alternative therapies that seem to help with the various inflammatory conditions, we find some common factors. These therapies tend to reduce stress, support digestion and detoxification, nourish the immune system, and heal emotional traumas. What can we deduce from all of this? The chronic inflammatory condition arises from some sort of overload of stress, often due to combined physical and emotional factors, such as emotions related to trauma and abuse, as well as exposure to drugs, environmental toxins, pathogens, fungal and parasitic infestations, and also significant physical injuries. When that occurs, the immune system becomes weakened and toxins can build up along with microbes, bacteria, viruses, etc. The inflammatory process is, in a sense, an incomplete immune response that is failing to fully address an infection or clear out endogenous or exogenous toxins. Once a danger or threat has been removed, the body returns to its equilibrium and inflammation naturally goes away. The body is not actually attacking itself, it is attempting to deal with the threat from whatever actually is harming it. With these conditions that have been commonly labeled autoimmune, the body recognizes that the threat remains, so it doesn't halt the immune response. By suppressing the immune response with drugs, the potential for an infection to progress even further is created, which is why these autoimmune illnesses often have a poor prognosis when treated only by conventional pharmaceutical medicine. As an aside, if you listen to the list or read the list of side effects that are presented with different medications, you'll often hear referring to risks of certain types of infections or risks of certain types of cancers, because by suppressing the immune response, then you're placing the immune system out of balance and limiting its ability to be flexible to respond to different situations that might arise. So in the case of infections, it might be less able to handle some infections. In the case of cancers, it might be less able to recognize the presence of certain cancers or less able to act to remove those cancer cells. So there's that trade-off. So while you're suppressing the symptoms of the hyperactivity of the immune response, you may end up suppressing a necessary immune response. So this is similar to what happens when modern medicine treats an infection with fever-suppressing drugs. The fever is actually an emergency virus-suppressing response of the immune system. The increased body temperature halts the viral DNA replication and gives the immune system time to target and destroy the virus through the body. In that scenario, the suppression of a fever could help an infection progress deeper. With autoimmune inflammatory conditions, the anti-inflammatory immune suppressing medicines are treating an unpleasant symptom, attempting to reduce the collateral damage from that immune activity. But that symptom is a part of how the body is seeking to protect itself and perhaps to overcome a chronic infection. The ideal treatment approach would be to offer all the support needed to assist the body in generating a healthy and effective immune response. This would include healing the gut, gastrointestinal issues, providing proper nourishment, clearing out disruptive toxins such as heavy metals, and giving non-toxic remedies to kill pathogens. Also helping alleviate emotional distress and self-defeating conscious thought processes would be vital, as the psyche governs the energy field that fuels the life energy of the body. Therefore, that energy that fuels our immune system, our immune function. We are recognizing now more and more that these same processes of toxins and pathogens in the body triggering chronic inflammation are fostering multiple modern disease epidemics, from arthritis and autism to Alzheimer's and fibromyalgia. You will often find heavy metal toxins, viruses, and chronic immune activation. The body can cleanse and heal itself when the energy system is flowing smoothly and stresses aren't interfering. Healing practitioners can provide assistance in helping address these stresses and helping the body recover from them. And you can view a video I created on this topic, Causes Natural Holistic Healing Treatments for Autoimmune Illness. And then below that, there are some other websites and also some books that are like encyclopedias on the psychospiritual root causes of health issues. So there's Metaphysical Anatomy, You Can Heal Your Life, Messages from the Body, Their Psychological Meaning, and Your Body's Telling You Love Yourself. Looking at some of the links to other websites, there's ones on some documentary series about autoimmune illnesses. There's a couple medical medium blog posts. There are some integrative and functional medicine physicians who have articles and interviews. There's also something I'd like to share now about the 5 levels of healing. And this is a model that was developed by Dr. Dietrich Klinkhardt. So the 5 levels of healing by Dietrich Klinkart, MD, PhD. And here's a summary of the 5 levels. The lowest level, or you could say the surface level, is the physical body, the foundation upon which everything else rests. It's our connection to the earth and the source of our physical energy. It's identical with what we see, feel, hear, smell, and taste. It ends at the skin. It's what we perceive with our 5 senses. And everything from the physician's best reference, herbal medicine, low potency homeopathics, to orthomolecular medicine, such as nutritional supplements, belongs here. Dr. Klinkard uses autonomic response testing or muscle response testing to evaluate the patient. It's a composite of hands-on examination techniques that uses changes in the autonomic nervous system as the primary indicator of practitioner elicited stress responses in the client's body. The direct resonance phenomenon allows the practitioner to scan the body for specific infections, toxins, and other, quote, invisible problems. The second level is the energy body or body electric, the summation of all electric and magnetic events caused by neuronal activity of the nervous system. So that's what I would call the electromagnetic body or electromagnetic level. The next higher body he considers to be the mental body or mental field. Then there's the level beyond the mind and beyond language. He says that's the home of near-death experiences, past lives, archetypes, spirit possession, ecstatic states, karma, and expression of unresolved transgenerational family issues. And he has a chart elsewhere where you can look at a diagram of the 5 levels. I would say that they're an attempt to kind of consolidate older metaphysical traditions that identify a whole octave of 7 or even 8 different levels to our energy system or energy field. Here's another location where you can read about the 5 levels of healing. So the 5th level there would be the spirit, which is basically the individual's connection or relationship to what you could label as God or the ultimate spiritual source. So issues can arise on any of these levels. For example, you could have a physical injury where there's some direct damage occurring in the physical body. You could break a bone, you could get hit by a bullet, different things could happen to your physical body. And there's symptoms as a result of that. And sometimes there's a ripple effect where because something happened on the physical level, it gets reflected further out than in the energy body and then in the mental and emotional and intuitive layers. You could, let's say, be exposed to a certain chemical medicine that causes a certain effect that's impacting you emotionally. So you could have withdrawal from cocaine, for example, where you're feeling depressed. It started out there on a physical level because of a chemical drug withdrawal. It's not as a result of situations in your life of grief or something happening. In that particular case, it could only result from that physical cause. Now, if you don't resolve that, if you don't physically get back into homeostasis, if that lingers, it could start to lead to more of an emotional chronic state of depression. So one could lead to the other, and things could start anywhere in this five-level system. So a cause could be on the spiritual, intuitive, mental, energy body level, or physical body level. And in order to resolve things, it's important to find kind of the root level or deepest level of where the causes are, because if the causes are on a deep subconscious level from your childhood trauma, from your ancestors or a past life, then just taking herbs or supplements or medicines to manipulate chemistry in your physical body is not going to resolve it. You might get some temporary shift in the symptoms, but once that treatment wears off, the same issue is still there. You haven't done anything to address it. So with autoimmune illnesses, this is a valuable model to consider because it lets us appreciate that just treating the physical is often not going to resolve things. While very often, if we address things at the source level, where things got thrown out of balance or disrupted in the first place, we may not need to treat the physical level. Things might actually resolve and things start to balance out physically without us having to intervene a lot there. We don't necessarily need to take a whole bunch of supplements. We don't necessarily need a very restrictive diet. There are times when those interventions can be quite useful, but for a complete long-term healing, we often need to address things in deeper ways, looking more at the psychological and spiritual elements. So you can read some more about those healing models through the links on my website. There are also, as I mentioned, some documentaries. Here's an example of one called Healing Genesis. So on that site, there are different video clips. You can even order DVDs of some of these series. So many different physicians and healers are out there providing support for recovery from autoimmune illnesses. Much of it lies outside of the conventional modern medical model that focuses on just giving you diagnosis and treatments for symptoms. I hope that this presentation has been helpful. I think that there's a lot of resources that we can explore that are going to really expedite the process of healing. We all have a great amount of inner power to heal. So for those that want to learn more, I invite you to visit my website, phinsights.com. That's PHINSIGHTS.com. For now, I wish everyone a wonderful day. Namaste.